Ayan. Hi, good evening everyone. So welcome po. Yan. My name is Melanie Madrigal, the marketing head of Aslex PH Academy. So I would like to warmly welcome everyone to our episode of our pre-webinar series called Alpha TV. And so our topic dwells on the continuous improvement in the new normal. So yan. Again, this episode is presented by Aslex PH Academy in partnership with IXL. Um, Review Center, Farmbox, Pinoy IEs, and Grace Apparel. So, ayan. Alright, good evening po sa ating lahat sa YouTube, Team YouTube and Team Zoom. Yan. Type 1 kung excited na kayo sa ating Alpha TV for tonight. Yan. Again, this episode is presented by ASEX PH Academy in partnership with IXL CIE Review Center, Farmbox, Pinoy IEs, and Grace Apparel. Yan. So you might as well invite all your colleagues, classmates, or friends to be also hashtag significantly better tonight here in Alpha TV. So now, without further ado, please give me this opportunity to, of course, introduce our resource speaker for tonight. So our resource speaker for tonight is none other than Dr. Felix Veroya. He is a founder and CEO of Aslex PH Academy, also the managing director of IXL CIE Review Center since 2013 up to now. Has a total of 10 years working experience in helping individuals and organizations to build and utilize competencies in continuous improvement, innovation, and analytics across the fields of academics, logistics, supply chain, manufacturing, training, and consulting for SMEs up to multinational corporations. He has proven skills relating to business administration, people management, research, statistical analysis, workshop facilitation, and consulting. He is able to complete and coach projects utilizing proven tools and methodologies such as DMAIC, Six Sigma, SCORE, Lean, design thinking, innovation, and self-initiated improvement frameworks on OEE capacity improvement, preventive maintenance, time reduction, mistake proofing, quick engineering solutions, idea management, and etc. So during the pandemic, he founded an online community for Filipino industrial engineers called Pinoy IEs. Yan. To help community to have platform to communicate and collaborate things about profession. With all initiatives, he designed and developed to the industrial engineering community here in the Philippines. He has been conferred with an honorary doctoral degree by the Asian Seminary Leadership and University of Oklahoma. So, all right. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome our speaker for the topic, continuous improvement in the new normal, none other than Dr. Felix Veroya.
Hi, hello. Good evening, everyone.
And good evening, Sir
And
Lex.
thank you, Eli, for that kind introduction. So let me just fix my background. I think, that was the background that I used yesterday for a program that I attended. But anyway, again, thank you, Eli, for that one. Let me share my screen before we continue. Ayan. So I hope everyone is all fired up for our topic this evening. And this is, again, continuous improvement in the new normal. You might have attended similar topics or titles related to continuous improvement in the new normal. So what you would want to learn from this particular session is basically a refresher on what is continuous improvement. And I'll give you some tips and techniques to avoid the pitfalls of still doing continuous improvement in the new normal or in the next normal. So for us to maximize this session, I would like to invite everyone here in the session to share the link to our Zoom room, since we still have about 70 seats that are available in our Zoom room for tonight. And of course, unlimited seats in our YouTube channel at Aslex PH Academy. So if you're at the Zoom room right now, I would encourage you to invite more people, no, to attend this session. Okay? So as mentioned, this one is generously provided by Aslex PH Academy in support or with the support coming from Pinoy IEs, our community of online community of Filipino engineers, Filipino industrial engineers to be more specific, iExcel CA Review Center, Formbox, and Grace Apparel, right? So moving forward, okay, just to give you some sort of refresher of the introduction that has been made by Eli. So I've been into the industry for more than 11 years already, so 1 decade and 1 year. I was able to activate and enable value creation to different organizations. I was able to mentor thousands of individuals that cuts across students, young professionals, entrepreneurs, startup founders and co-founders, and even multinational corporations or companies, no, employees of those organizations. We were awarded more than 20 times, both locally and internationally. I'm actually writing books and articles that are published internationally, and I have some sort of wide leadership in terms of that. I also have my own column called The Catalyst at the Philippine Business and News, and I am involved in so many organizations here and abroad. So we have a quite busy schedule, but still we always find time to share our experience and expertise, of course. Ayan. So before we jump into, of course, our discussion tonight, okay, I want to invite you to join this room or this particular platform called slido.com, and then you have to enter the code 022370, or simply head over to this link. Okay, so I'm gonna paste this, of course, here at our YouTube, because we have people who are in our YouTube feed. Okay, so I'll be transferring to my view or your, so you can view your answers. So I want you to answer this question. What's your favorite continuous improvement tool or technique? Okay. So I'll be waiting for your responses. I can see who among you are already in the room, or who have accessed this particular room. Okay. Still appealing to everyone in the session. If you can invite more people, the more the merrier. But for the meantime, if you could answer this poll for the next 2-3 minutes, it will be great. So we only have one answer. Okay, so what you will pin is your answer. Okay. Okay, so you have 2 to 3 minutes. Okay, so only 2 have answered. We have 3. Okay. Come on, guys. We have 5 Ys. Leading is 5S. Right? PDCA. Great. Okay, so we have 5 answers. So if we could like wait for the answers to be at around maybe 15, so that we can like have a half of people who are in the session to give their inputs. Right, so we're now at 10. I think based on the size of the answers, we have 5S as the leading answer, right? So we have PDSA, PDCA, we have DMAIC, we have 5 Ys, we have Gemba Walks, we have the Madvi. Okay, so I'm assuming that you're putting these answers based on your experience of applying these tools, right? All right, so I think we were able to hit the minimum required number. So I think it's good for us to go. So as of this moment, we have 5S as the leading answer. Maybe if it happens that you have answered this later than others, we can actually go back to this before we go to the Q&A, right? So going back to my main screen, thank you for your participation, everyone. Of course, every one of us has been familiar with different wide array of continuous improvement tools and techniques, right? So that cuts across the answers that you were able to provide. Like from 5S, we have the DMAIC and the MADV of Lean Six Sigma. We have the PDCA, PDSA. That's basically from the roots of Lean. So we have like Gemba walks. So it's actually, this vast number of tools and techniques. Yeah. Now, let me remind you of how can we attain a state of improvement. And this is inspired, of course, by the father of continuous improvement or Kaizen, Masaaki Imai, where there is no standard, there can be no improvement. For these reasons, standards are the basis for both maintenance and improvement. Okay? So let me tell you a story. 2-3 years ago, I've been involved and engaged with several institutions and organizations that host or organize continuous improvement programs or competitions. Okay, so I'm involved in both local and international competitions, and we of course we will be skimming and running through various number of submissions and presentations, and it will always be a funny thing to hear coming from this audience, coming from these participants, that they're actually doing improvements when in fact there is no standards that has been set prior to them doing projects that they so-called improvements. Okay, it means that, so for example, if a company that has been established for about 10 or 20 years is telling us that, hey, we've done this project, we improve. Okay, we improve, let's say, the output per line, or maybe your customer service index, or maybe your service level agreements. And you're telling us that the reason or the root cause why there is a problem is that there's no standard, then I think all of your efforts doing such cannot be called improvements, but rather problem solving activities. Okay? And this is one thing that I always tell my mentees. It's two different things, right? When you say improvement, it means that you have a sound baseline. You already have this standard, and you're seeing an opportunity, a gap between a new baseline that can be created versus the existing baseline. And that's basically improvement, because you're challenging the current target, because you can see that you can do more. So if it's this case, say for example, you have a target, say this is the target, and your actual performance is in here, and there's a gap, right? There's a gap here. Then what you're doing is basically, when you close this gap, you're doing what? You're doing problem solving. You're not doing any improvement at all. Let that be clear, right? So it's very important that before we do anything, we know the standards. We have a standard, okay? So that's the first principle that I want to share with you this evening. Okay? I made this material. If you can see here, there's a picture ng lugaw during the pandemic. Okay, so I think that was like 1 year ago or so. And I want to share what are the continuous improvement essentials that we have to understand before we go into what are the pitfalls of doing continuous improvement in this next normal or new normal that we that we are embracing or that we are welcoming, right? Now, the question is, how do we deliver improvement? Of course, there are a lot of things that could be done so that improvements can be made or can be delivered. Some of you mentioned about lean tools. Some of you mentioned about Six Sigma tools. Some of you mentioned about some other tools that could be applied from other facets and other areas of continuous improvement, innovation, and such. So let me just highlight. Okay, if we talk about those things, yes, of course, we're talking about the reduction of waste. So as identifying what are the non-value adding activities. So for those who are not familiar with the term, non-value adding activities are any activities that does not add value to your product. Say, we call these essential steps that converts the raw input to the output for the customers value adding. Say for example, um, if you want to, let's say, produce or sell, let's say for example, ice cream. So the ice cream, the generation or the creation of the ice cream itself is value adding. The additional steps that doesn't add value to the creation of the ice cream as a product is called non-value adding steps. Say for example, excessive movements just to get the raw ingredients before you prepare or before you create or produce the ice cream, or maybe errors or rejects while you are transferring the ice cream to smaller containers. So those kind of steps are called non-value adding. And this non-value adding steps in the business process is actually considered to be as waste. So non-value adding steps is almost equivalent to what we call waste in our business processes. Okay. And when we do projects that would address this, waste, we have like 8 types of waste. It's called downtime. For those who are not yet familiar, it's called downtime because it stands for defects, overproduction, waiting, non-utilized talent, transportation, inventory, motion, and extra processing. So all of the organizations basically has a lot of non-value adding processes in their systems. Well, if I remember it correctly, the published materials will tell us that only 5 to 10% of the business process steps are value adding and the rest are non-value adding. Okay? And as we try to address this, waste, these redundancies, as we strive to ensure at every step that there is quality, we need to collaborate with the team. I always tell my mentees that doing Lean Six Sigma projects, Lean projects, innovation projects, analytics projects, any kind of projects, it does involve, doing this, completing this as a team. So doing that, in doing that, we are actually improving collaboration. So for a Lean organization, the process of evaluating our customers' perception of the value, which is the one of the main pillar of Lean, and delivering it efficiently never ends. So it's really a cycle that we follow. So for example, if you want to improve on delivering in terms of lead time to your customer, the lead time of deliveries, say your order from the online sellers or online platforms, say it takes like 4 to 5 days, and then they were able to reduce that to 3 to 4 days. So on the next cycle of the challenge or improvement that they need from their employees, they will challenge these employees to deliver faster than that. And that's going to be a never ending cycle of continuous improvement. Okay, but if we look into the enablers, okay, if we look into the enablers or what makes this cycle or this process, in reality, we have this 3 P's that we have to consider. Number one, the purpose. What is the motivation? Okay, what are the triggers of doing these activities? We also, of course, have the process. What is the structured process that we will have to apply? Okay, there's a lot of structured problem solving that could be, found in the world. Okay, so we have DMAIC, we have Lean, we have design thinking, um, we have the 8 steps of problem solving, we have the Kepner-Trego, and the list goes on and on. And of course, you would want your purpose, okay, back up with a structured process. But of course, you have to enable people. You have to train people and equip them with all the necessary tools and techniques that they need for them to facilitate the process and to achieve the purpose that you have laid upon. Right? So this is basically how things works in terms of how we deliver improvements. Now, if we look into all the activities, okay, inside the organization, the things that are being done by the organization to improve their processes, it's basically like an iceberg. Okay. Well, on an iceberg, you only see the results as the tip of the iceberg, but you don't see all the efforts and resources that are being invested before the tip of the iceberg becomes a reality. Okay, so that's one way to look at this. Also, if we talk about continuous improvement projects in general and such, we're talking about what is the right approach. Okay, we're talking about two approaches here. Number one, or the first one, it's called the top down. Okay, the second one is the bottom up. So now, what's the difference? The difference lies in when you say top down, okay, the management, they have something in mind that they want you to do. Okay, so they will cascade it down to their VPs, to their senior managers, senior directors, middle managers, up until to the levels of engineers and analysts. Okay, and then do the project. So that's called top down, coming from the top of the hierarchy going to our levels. Okay, now there's another path to this, okay, for continuous improvement, and that is called bottom up. So what's bottom up? From the phrase itself, these are suggestions coming from the grassroots. So for example, if I'm the engineer or analyst, I will tell, um, boss, I have this, project in mind that would help us to reduce the consumption of office supplies here at our area. Or maybe I have this suggestion or idea that would address the gap in the output that our machine can deliver on a daily basis. Or maybe that would improve the customer satisfaction index that we are having problems with. So coming from an idea of an employee, that will flow up until the top management recognizes that an improvement has been made by this particular employee. So there's two pathways on how to do this. And depending on the culture of the organization, we're talking about either top down most of the time or bottom up, mix of two approaches. From my experience, most of the projects, I could say that about 70 to 80% of the projects that I have experienced are top down projects. Okay, because of course, people will always tell you that they're busy, so they can see any projects that could be created for their processes. Well, it's just some sort of alibi, since you don't want to spend much time on special projects because you have day in day out activities that you have to attend to, unless otherwise, of course, this has been cascaded by the top management or by your bosses or immediate superior. Correct? Okay. Now, continuous improvement, of course, it cuts across so many things. Okay? Continuous improvement, sometimes called continual improvement in the context of management systems, is of course the never-ending improvement of products, services, and processes through what we call incremental changes. Most of the times, the word Kaizen, if you're familiar with the word Kaizen, which means small positive changes, which has been associated heavily on the term continuous improvement, all right? These are series of improvements that are being made, okay, on a frequent basis that will provide satisfying results, or that will provide favorable results that will help us achieve strategic objectives. Okay, so we're not talking about one-time, big-time projects here, but we're talking more of projects that are, being done on a frequent basis, maybe on a review of 6 months or 1 year, and then another project will be created on top of that project. If you can still remember my example on the reduction of lead time, let's say 4 to 5 days to 4 to 5 days to 3 to 4 days to 2 to 3 days until we meet like 2 days on the average, right? So it's a never-ending process or cycle. So if you can see here, okay, we have mindsets or elements that would enable this particular continuous improvement cycle. Again, there's the purpose, there's the process, and there is the people who needs to be equipped. So we're talking about specific triggers or motivations of why we are doing this. we're talking about process management, or how are we managing our process? How do we collect data from our process? How do we use the data in our process to enable or to identify projects or opportunities or gap, either problems or opportunities that we could address using specific tools and techniques, and how do we deliver this particular process that would create the output that our customer requires. So that's basically on what we see on the left side. Of course, there are like process capture things like how do we ideate solutions, what's the specific process of identifying and analyzing the root causes, and more importantly, the specific approaches that could lead us to actual improvements. Okay, so it's really more of all of these enablers working hand in hand in a systematic approach, okay, that would result into the gains or into the results that we are eyeing for the organization, of course. Now, if we talk about process management is very important. Whenever I teach Lean Six Sigma, I always ask my students, do you have a process management in place? Okay, so how do we assess whether we have a process management in place? Here are some guide questions that I would want to share with you. Number one, do we have a documented procedure or a guide on how to do the process steps involved in this specific process? Okay, do we have that? If the answer is no, then basically you don't have a complete process management, because you don't know how to manage or how to execute the step by step process, or the steps of this particular process. That's the first question. Second question is that do we have a way to collect data from that process? If the answer is no, again, you have a process management issue. You have to first establish that before you do anything, like before you do solve problems, or like before you improve, okay, any related measures or KPIs to that particular process. Do we have some sort of way on how to report how the process performs? Again, if the answer is no, then you have a process management issue. Do we have some set of action items that we will do if ever we will identify gaps or inefficiencies in our process? If the answer again is no, then that will go back to your process management as your primary issue. And there could be a lot of possible questions that you could ask, but those four questions would be beneficial when we talk about whether we have an efficient process management that is in place before we do any problem solving or process improvement. Okay, so and that cuts across not only the traditional or the pre-pandemic way of how to do continuous improvement, especially nowadays that we're on the new normal or the next normal. Okay, so if you can see here, it's like a triangle wherein the customer provides, of course, the requirements or the required specifications for certain products and services that they ask from our organization. So that will flow through, of course, the application of processes and combined with people, and then it will still break down into specific process owners, who manages, who owns specific processes, who leads. Okay, and this will go through the meaty and gritty of from the process management perspective, the audits, how processes are being performed, what are the risks, are the risks being addressed, are we complying with the documented procedures, how do we collect information or data, how we use that data, how do we apply changes, are the changes that has been made well documented and well cascaded to the users. And of course, if we're using systems or softwares, okay, we're talking about integration of the softwares from one software to another. And that's basically how the ecosystem of process management system will work. Okay, we're talking about this since later on we'll talk more about the pitfalls. And of course, we are on the industry 4.0. We are accelerated by what happened during the pandemic. So we shifted basically to or the changes has been accelerated from one phase to another just to compensate for what happened during the pandemic. Of course, the integration of all these things will be very important since most most of the projects were being handled virtually. Okay, so we need to see the components that are very essential on how we manage our process, because that's fundamental before we do any, again, problem solving or process improvement in our respective processes. Okay. Now, if we talk about improvement methods, again, there are a lot of methods. Now, we can start with Lean, Six Sigma, we have Kepner Trego, we have the PDCA, we have the 8 steps. So, and the list goes on and on. Okay. Now, just to refresh, one of the most common method would be, of course, Lean Six Sigma, which is basically the combination of lean thinking that focuses on addressing waste or non-value adding activities in our business processes, making sure that the processes are efficient and effective. And the other one is Six Sigma, which is basically the statistical side, the data-driven side of this combined methodology called Lean Six Sigma. We're talking about reducing of variation. Okay, because variation, if we talk more about it more practically, we're talking about the predictability of the process. Okay, so if we're expecting that we will be having this kind of burger from a fast food restaurant, that it will taste this delicious every time we order that, we're actually expecting that for every orders that we will make, we will be tasting um the same burger, right? But if there are, like, deviations or variations, that makes the customer satisfaction index to decrease in a way. So that is why what Six Sigma does, or what Six Sigma is doing, is that it finds ways using statistical methods or data driven methods and techniques to address that variation to a certain level that will not affect the quality of our products and services. So if Lean I aims to make our process faster by reducing and by eliminating the waste, Six Sigma makes our process better by um, controlling the amount of variation that affects quality on an optimal level, or at an optimal level. Okay, so combining the two so makes our processes faster and better in terms of quality, and that's how basically most of the continuous improvement projects are being completed and deployed in actual organizations. We're talking about prior the pandemic, and even now that we have the pandemic. Okay, and as mentioned, there are a lot of other tools. So we can talk about Lean Six Sigma, and there's the design thinking that is actually the more creative side of solving problems that are centered to human systems interaction. Say for example, what are the pain points, or what are the segments of a particular process that the human component interacted with the system, either a series of process steps or products or services, and the human component experience a difficulty or an unserved requirements. So we're talking about more of a creative way of addressing problems. If we talk about building products and services, we have what we call the lean startup. So it's more of learning what are the requirements of our customer, what are again the pain points. It's actually related to the design thinking stuff that we mentioned about earlier, which focus on empathizing with the customer, the pain points that we are experiencing. So we want to learn that, build the necessary solutions that will address that, and measure whether this is effective or not. And these are actually frameworks that has been very useful during this time of pandemic, since most of there has been an increase of number of startups that has been created during the pandemic, since there are a lot of pain points that surface, of course, during the pandemic. And I'm actually part of this startup ecosystem or community, wherein I love to hear or read solutions that really addresses pain points of actual users. And we also have Agile Scrum. I think this was some topic that has been discussed on the previous sessions of Alpha TV by Engineer Kiselin Valenzuela. So we have this sprint planning, execution, product backlog, sprint review things that happen. So this is like, if you know project management, this is more of a faster way of doing and flexible way of doing project management, the additional project management that we may already know. Okay, so again, there are a lot of frameworks and methodologies that could be used, either pre-pandemic and even the next normal. This will be all applicable. Okay, now we have this notion that we have this notion that we know already how the process works. Okay, so if this, imagine your organization has this particular steps here. Okay, you have like 3 departments, you have several teams across or within a department, you have different systems that you're using. So imagine how long will it take for, let's say for example, for a request coming from the customer be provided to your end. Okay, so imagine yourself, let's say, if you say for example file a request for a refund, let's say for a refund of a product that you bought online, that functioning based on your expectation. So typically the process would be you'll write them a mail or an email, or send them a message via their platforms, or maybe even call their hotline, etc., etc., etc. And imagine if it will take you like 15 working days just for you to process that and for you to get a response. Not even without that's even without the resolution yet of the particular dispute that you have reported. So imagine how irritating that could be, correct? And it's because of the complexities that is within the organizations. We're talking about waste, we're talking about variations, right? Okay? And if we'll dig deeper into what it really looks like, okay? So how we think the process works, we think it's very ideal, right? I mean, if we're on the customer side, imagine how these people in certain organizations think. Is of course, if you're the creator, the designer of the process, and this could not be this is not just for people who are outside this particular room. It could be people inside this particular session right now that you think as a continuous improvement practitioner, okay, that your process are really working well. You can create that illusion. But if you look into it, someone mentioned about Gemba walk. So Gemba means actual workplace in English. Gemba is a Japanese term. Okay? Walk meaning, of course, you have to walk the actual workplace. You have to see what's happening in the actual workplace. Because sometimes what we think, of course, is that equivalent to our the reality. Right? The memes in the social media stating that there's a difference, of course, between your expectation and your reality. And expectation is on the upper level, and then the reality is on the middle level. We're talking about how does the process actually work, and this is the current situation. There are so many things that are wired and are intertwined because of the redundancies, because of the inefficiencies, the waste, and the variation. Correct. Now, if we could apply, of course, problem solving or process improvement methodologies, this is basically how it should work. This is basically how simple it should be. Okay? And of course, again, I indulge you to challenge yourselves. You might be having that illusion that okay, my process are really working, on the premise that we are expecting, but you have to check first before you become very confident that your process are really doing their best, right? Okay. Now, having that said, there are a lot of pitfalls, okay, that continuous improvement initiatives are facing, especially in the new normal. So for the rest of my time, I'll be sharing with you some of the questions or maybe some of the items, and like give you some guide questions on how can you deal with this type of pitfalls. And these are like about 7 pitfalls that I will be sharing and how to avoid them. Number 1, know your company's change driver or know your motivations. Okay? Number two, prepare, prepare, prepare. Number three, find the right tools. Number four, determine the right metrics. Number five, involve leadership. Number six, compile the right team. And number seven, or letter G, put it all together. Okay? So let's go through each slides. Okay. The first thing that we need to understand is the change drivers that our organization wants us to implement. So we're talking about, okay, why do we need to change this process? Okay. Because people around the process will always ask why. Why do we have to change this? It should be very clear for you as the facilitator of change, and of course to the people around the process that you would want to change, that this is necessary and essential, as these are aligned to what the organization wants to do. But yes, you can easily say that to their faces, but it's very critical that you know what is the rationale of doing so. Say for example, okay, the organization wants to cut the cost from its regular or its baseline to a reduction of 5% quarter to quarter. Why do we need to do that? You have to ask people who are above you in terms of the hierarchy. Let's say boss, why do we need to do this? So knowing why we have to do the changes can help us to to kickstart all the process improvements that we need to do or that we want to do by explaining to people who are involved. Say this could be team members or stakeholders of the process of the changes that needs to be done. Okay, so that's one thing that's very important. We have to understand why is there a need for us to change. Okay. The second one is about preparation. Okay. In everything that we do, preparation is very important. Okay. And we're talking about preparation in terms of the preparation of doing the projects. Okay. I mentioned about understanding the motivation of doing the changes. By understanding that, we are also having this, mindset that we have to link everything that we do to the strategic objectives. So what are the strategic objectives? These are um, action items or programs or projects, big projects that organizations want to materialize, and you would want to anchor or refer or to, to align the projects that you will be doing to those objectives. Okay. And of course, if we're planning to do continuous improvement projects and activities, we have to understand that we have to be very clear on what projects should we take on. Okay? We have to allot our resources on critical engagements that would really matter and bring value to the organizations. Not just do the projects for the sake of doing projects. Okay? I've heard a lot of stories that, Sir Lex, hindi naman appreciate ng company yung mga ginawa namin projects. Okay? My question would be, are you sure that the projects that you completed or the project that you completed is really aligned to what the company wants to do for the next like year, 2, 3, or 5 years? Because if not, then basically no one will appreciate that. Okay. We also have to consider, okay, area of focus that's actually driven by the strategic objectives. Okay, because if it's that's aligned to our strategic objectives, the organization's strategic objectives, we're talking about a very good support system coming from your top management. Okay, and do we have a process of archiving the knowledge that we're learning from the projects? Before you start any project, always remember that you have to understand that you have to prepare rather a system that will collect what we call lessons learned. Lessons learned could be best practices in doing projects, or maybe failures that has been committed and ways on how they have been resolved on this particular project, because that will give us like a kickstart of, hey, we're gonna if we're gonna experience this on the next projects, we already know how to mitigate the effects or impact or even avoid them on the first hand, no. And always remember that in any project, preparation is very important. Planning is very important. Don't go jump ahead if you don't have a concrete plan on how you want to do things moving forward, because you will bound to fail if that's what you're thinking to sustain or to maintain the projects that you would want to start. Okay, always remember that planning is key, preparation is key for any improvement programs or for any endeavors that you might want to do in your organization. The third one is, of course, we have to understand from the so many tools and techniques that are available for our consumption. We have to understand that we have to choose the correct tool for the job, okay, to be done, because that's more important, okay, anything more than anything else. Of course, we have to equip. We mentioned about equipping people. The human component of the system has a tendency to overdo things. Say for example, it could be done by just simply visualizing some set of data, but we're actually keep on pushing that we need Lean Six Sigma here, when in fact you only need the basic problem solving methodology. So it's very important. This is where wisdom for us continuous improvement practitioners and future practitioners should be in the picture. We have to understand that yes, there are a lot of tools and techniques. I have to have the wisdom, okay, the knowledge to identify which particular tool is best fit to that particular scenario. And this is not as easy as it may sounds. Okay, it could take a lot of practice. Okay, I myself, I've been in a position that I'm already a practitioner, but I keep on asking myself which will be the best fit in terms of tools and techniques. And you'll learn that as as you go along in the journey of becoming a continuous improvement practitioner. Again, there are a lot of things, okay? But choosing the correct tool, okay, for the job will make the whole process easier. Next would be determining the right metrics. So if we talk about metrics, these are measures of the process, or not even the process, but the organization. So if we talk about the measure of how fast we can deliver, we're talking about delivery lead time. If we talk about how the rate of how we can produce, or how fast we can produce, or how many can we produce on a certain time period, we're talking about output given the time period, or the production output or rate. If we're talking about how customers are satisfied from our or how customers are satisfied by our products and services, we're talking about customer satisfaction indices. And the list of metrics could go on and on and on. What we're trying to say here is that because we're transitioning from the traditional going to the next normal, new normal, there could be changes of also in the metrics that we want to look at. So if we talk about projects, so projects could be either be measured in how fast they are completed, or maybe how much gains or savings it has generated. Okay, so it's very important for us to identify the important metrics, either it be on the process-based scenarios, say for example output, yield, cycle time, lead time, or maybe on the project base, say for example how fast projects are being completed, what are the results, etc., etc. So it's very important to assess whether we're using the right metrics. So to help us, we can ask these questions. First, are the metrics you have in place telling the full story? So there could be a lot of metrics. I've experienced that, okay, we're looking at a lot of metrics, but only 2 or 3 out of the 10 really matters. So we have to find that metric. Setting up a metric or a KPI, a more practical term that you might be hearing, or key performance index or indices. It's another easy thing to say, but hard it's a hard thing when you are the one who will execute or formulate that. So you have to be to be a wide reader and check whether these are indices and metrics that could be applicable in your process. You can benchmark coming from similar industries or companies. Do we tie up our improvement suggestion to expected improvements in operational metrics? Now, funny thing is that we've done projects before that, okay, we're expecting improvements in terms of monetary equivalent. Okay, the metric were improved, but there are no associated dollar savings or monetary equivalent. But we're expecting some. Okay. So what's making this particular problem, okay, to occur? It's basically the misalignment of, you know, the things that we're using as, again, as a basis, as against to what we are trying to close in actual projects. So again, we have to do the alignment. Okay. Okay. So if this, for example, if the improvements were done based on what has been conceived in the project, but at the end it does not translate into value in terms of dollar savings or cost reduction, but you're expecting some of it happening, then that's actually a red flag. You go back and check your metrics. And of course, if we're talking about KPIs and metrics, we're talking about real-time reporting. Okay? And that's basically one of the pitfall. If an organization does not embrace or do not implement things like the industry 4.0, even the lowest level of that digitization before digital transformations, things like those, we will be having problems on, of course, monitoring the progress of our projects, doing the improvements and such, because we can see whether there are effects or there are like, improvements that are really being delivered by the improvement action items that we have implemented. So it's really it's gonna be hard for us. So we have to ensure that we have that in place before we do like so many projects at a time. Okay. Next would be, of course, involving the leadership. No? One critical factor for continuous improvement initiatives or projects to be successful is the support of the leadership. Okay. And I've mentioned this already, but I just want to reiterate, coming from the previous slides, that we need to align whatever we want to do to what the company or organization wants to do. Okay. By doing so, we can get enough support. We can do in terms of the resources, manpower, removing the roadblocks, okay, and even providing enough resources for our projects. Okay. And if we talk about leadership, it doesn't only cut to the leadership coming from our top management. We're talking also about leadership coming from your end. So you have to be prepared to lead this team. If you talk about leading, on top of being you technically knowledgeable on the tools and techniques, it pays a lot to be a leader who knows the dynamics of a team. So you have to understand their strengths or weaknesses, things that they're good at, and align all the necessary tasks and jobs that could be provided to this team member so that they can contribute value to your projects. Okay. Next, compile the right team. So we're talking about team members. And if we talk about team members, maybe it's not just only me here in the room, but of course, we're talking about this team of awesome people that really works as a team. Though there are conflicts, of course, conflicts is very usual in a project environment, continuous improvement projects, analytics project, any generic projects that you might have, because you're working in a cross-functional team. So you have to make sure that you're working on with cross-functional team members, so that there are a lot of eyes, or there are a lot of not opinions, but maybe inputs, valuable inputs that could go into the project, and that could be some sort of reconciliation whether your project is still doing good or not. Not just looking or not just using the eyes of people who are used to work in that particular process. Okay? Ask them if they want to be involved. Provide them with clarity on what they have to know about the project. Okay, as mentioned on the previous slides, and you can also check on the level of their engagement or involvement. So would they want to be persons who are responsible or accountable, or just some sort of consultant for inputs, or just being people who are are being informed by the improvements, by the progress of the improvement projects. So you have to understand that. And if we talk about, of course, team, always remember that you have to always communicate with your team members, not only with your team members but your stakeholders, whatever happens to your project or whatever is happening to your project. Okay? And last but not the least is putting it all together. There's a lot of things that could happen. It could cut across your, of course, the passion of why we are doing this, aligning the passion of the projects or the goals of the projects to that passion of the organization or strategic objectives of the organization, making sure that we are all prepared in terms of the platform, the people, the process. Okay, we are using the right tools and techniques. We are anchoring our projects to right metrics. We are getting enough support from our top management. We are providing enough support and leadership to our team members. And I think that's gonna be like the whole cookbook and recipe for you to have a successful continuous improvement, not even in this pandemic, but sustainably beyond the next normal or the new normal. So you could be wondering what could be the next trends in the continuous improvement. And as I end, I'll be sharing with you some of what I have been able to learn from conferences that I've been attending for the last couple of months here and, of course, outside the Philippines. Number one, there will be methods for sustaining improvement. Sorry, there will be methods for sustaining improvement. It will get more attention. So meaning structured approaches like Lean, Six Sigma, design thinking, Agile Scrum, and all of the many things that are out there, they will be used. Okay, they will be utilized fully. So if you're here, if you want to be relevant, I think the key takeaway should be I have to learn at least one, or not maybe just one, for as long as it's relevant to my work function or to my job. I have to learn that method, that structured approach. Number two, organizations will standardize and continuous improvement methodologies. So there are a lot of methodologies that are being used in one organization. And we're seeing that this will be embedded really to how the operations and the things that are being done inside the organization will happen for the next couple of years. Okay, so meaning, say for example, if some people are using Six Sigma Dimaic or Lean PDCA or design thinking or Agile Scrum, etc., there will be, or this will be embedded already to their systems. These methodologies will be required. Okay, number three, project teams will grow more diverse because of course, the next normal. We're on the digital landscape. So projects that are being done by cross-functional, not only within an organization, but cross organizations. I have experienced that for the last 3 years that I'm affiliated with my last company that I have been affiliated. So I'm working with people outside the facility. So I'm working with people that are based on the US, on other neighboring Asian countries. So this skill of collaborating in a project context or project environment will always be, collaboration and communication will always be one of the next trends in terms of continuous improvement in related facets or applications. And last but not the least, there will be a broader adoption of continuous improvement technology. So we're talking about applying softwares and technology that could help us do our projects faster, that could help us manage our projects, because we're not talking about one project at a time. We're talking about multiple projects at a time. So we're not talking about just a simple set of data. We're talking about a lot of data or big data. So there could be adoption of several softwares, like, of course, we already know, if you're familiar with Minitab, we have GMP, we have R, Python, we have Tableau, Power BI, and the list goes on and on. So we still have to keep on learning those things if we want to stay relevant in the continuous improvement for the next normal. Okay? And let me give you this particular quote coming from one of our respected scientists that cuts across centuries. If you always do what you always did, you will always get what you always got. So don't expect changes if you're not doing any changes to that particular area that you're expecting some sort of change. So it means that if you want to see a change, then you have to change really something so that you can achieve what you're expecting for. Okay? And with that, I suppose I was able to deliver what's intended to be delivered for tonight. I'm now open to any questions that you might have. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Sir Lex, for the wonderful topic you have shared to us. So we are all blessed here tonight to witness such an amazing lecture just for free, di ba? So hindi na natin patatagalin pa. You may now ask question to Sir Lex. Just type it on the chat box. Yan. Let Sir Lex answer that live.
I am now open to any questions. So if you have some sort of questions, please let me know. You might be wondering, you might be wondering why I keep on speaking on English, even my delivery of the English language is not that polished. It's because we're actually partnering with some organizations to use this as form of learning and development for their employees, and some, if not most of them, are English speaking professionals, so we have to practice that, you know. Okay, what are your questions, or what questions do you have? So I think for the benefit of time being, we can only accommodate certain questions. So if you have one, please let us know.
So, Sir Lex, I have one question here.
Sure.
Um, what were the issues that you have faced while working on the project and how you overcame it?
Well,
Can you share one?
yeah, thank you, Ele, for that question. Well, basically, there are a lot of challenges when you're doing improvement projects, and I think one that would, entail, one that is worth remembering is that when you're dealing with a very difficult stakeholders. So when we talk about stakeholders, these are people who will be affected by the project, okay, or any activities that are related to the project. So I have experienced one time that I have attended this kickoff meeting for a project, and then this actually my second day in this company, and then the senior manager of this department operations, they she saw us, and then her remarks was like, so what are you doing here? What are you doing here in this particular meeting? What value could you contribute to this meeting? Because in the actual workplace there are a lot of resistance, even without the actual improvement action items being being delivered, or being implemented. Just by the onset of the kickoff meeting, this process owners are very protective of their processes. So they have this idea, and this is just from my experience and from my perspective. They have this idea that whenever people are sent to help them, it's a matter of exposing some problems that they don't want to, that they don't want to be out in the open. So it's really a matter of the change, or the resistance to change, possible changes, that is always difficult. And how can we, uh, go around it or go about it? So it's really a matter of explaining again, why do we need to do this? What will be the impact to their organization or to their department? What will be the benefit that they can gain from saying yes, that you can help us do this improvement, or you can do the improvements in our processes. So it's really more of aligning with the stakeholders, especially the decision makers on that process, so that the facilitation of the problem solving or process improvement will be as smooth as possible. Make them feel that you are an ally, okay, that you're a partner, rather than you're someone who will just police them or tell them what to do. Make them as your partners. So I think that's gonna be my answer to that question. I hope I was able to answer your question, Eli.
Right. Thank you so much, Sir Lex. So, I think we are on the last part of our event. Let me just share my screen. All right. Later we will give a link for the attendance. So just fill up the attendance form, and only those with attendance details will be given an e-certificate. Attendance link will close after 30 minutes. I think around 9 p.m. Close na po ang ating link for the attendance. So ayan. Um, kung hindi nyo pa napa-follow ang ating pages, so you may now follow and like our Facebook page, link and on LinkedIn, YouTube, and visit our website on www.aslexph.com. So ayan, let me just promote some of the program of Aslex PH Academy. So this is the Lean Six Sigma Yellow Belt Certification Program. So you may join now to join the next run on March 19, 20, 26, and 27, 2022. That's every 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. with lunch break on Saturday and Sunday class, live online classes, and e-learning. So we also have this Lean Six Sigma Yellow Belt Certification Program. This is for the self-paced and fully online, anytime, anywhere, for only 2,990. So this is internationally accredited, live access anytime, anywhere, 90 plus videos, exercises, quizzes, tools plus templates included, best practices and tips included. So design sprint e-learning access for Alpha Alumni Network. So you may register now. Yan. And for the Green Belt certification, it includes free Lean Six Sigma Yellow Belt certification program. So this is on March 19 to April 17, 2022. This is a e-learning and weekend live classes. Yan, accredited by this and okay. So for the Lean Six Sigma Green Belt self-paced and fully online, anytime, anywhere, 14,990. So this is internationally accredited also. So lifetime access anytime, anywhere, 90 plus videos, exercises, quizzes, tools plus templates, best practices and tips included, free certification, yellow belt plus e-certs, design sprint plus presenting with impact, access to Alpha Alumni Network. So this is our new program, the Agile Scrum Foundation. So be a certified Agile Scrum Foundations, CASF professional. The next run is on April 2 and 3, 2022. So this is 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. also. So for the black belt, um, for this, you will only need to pay at least 15,000 to reserve your seat, and balance is payable until a week before the graduation. Program is valued at 150,000 plus introductory rate for the first 30 candidates, or until March 31, whichever comes first is 60,000 only. Special rates for yellow belt and green belt alumni. This is on May 7 to June 26, 2022. So the data science with Python for only 15,000. This is leading to becoming an alpha certified data analyst on May to June 2022. Saturday and Sundays, 8 a.m. to 12 noon, e-learning plus live online mentoring. So for the project management for only 1,990. This is on March 26, 8 a.m. to 12 noon. It includes free PM templates worth USD 100. So for the Alpha Certified Kaizen Professional or Alpha CKP PM, e-learning plus weekend live online classes on March 26 and 27, 2022, 8 a.m. and 12 noon. So for the Certified Internal Quality Auditor for only 5,000. This is on March 23, 30, and May 7 to 12. So you can join as a group of 5 and pay only for 4. This is for all the course, right, sir? And ASXPH is also looking for partner and for ambassadors. If you are interested to be one of the Alpha ambassador, you may chat us on our Facebook page or just search for the instruction on the page. So you can also visit us at aslexph.com and acquire these free um, programs by Aslex PH Academy. So we have also IXL, online CIE review. So this is Aslex PH partner and also the Farm Box and Grace Apparel. So, all right, this is the link for the attendance. Ayan. Ayan, i-paste lang po namin yung link na ito sa ating chat box and also sa YouTube. So, fill out the evaluation form in the link. Only those with both Zoom link and attendance details will be given an e-certificate. Attendance link will close after 30 minutes.
Hi, thank you, Eli, for giving the audience some promotions on the upcoming program. So again, maraming salamat for being with us. So I guess that's going to be the end of the night for us tonight. So let's be with each other again on. We have Kapian with Sir Lex next Wednesday, and of course next Friday another Alpha TV, which will revolve around continuous improvement, because continuous improvement is the theme for Aztec Speech Academy for the month of March. So again, thank you everyone, and hopefully we can see you in our programs, in our free and paid programs. So please continue to support us, and let's continue to be #significantly better together. Bye guys. Thank you everyone, and keep safe always. Bye.
Thank you po, sir.